back then, right? Back then, there's a stigma: no education, no money, no future, right? There's that stigma, right?
Okay. So after that was just a case of, okay, another outlet, another coffee shop, or like, how did that journey sort of go
Right. Okay.
to where you are now?
After that, it was a few more investors, and I got a bit tired of it actually.
Okay.
As you know, with investors, it's never really yours. They tell you, yeah, I'll give you 25% equity, blah blah.
Partnership, right?
Partnership,
Yeah.
blah, blah. It's always that conversation, right? At the end of the day, it's never. It's never that, which is fine. It's their money, I understand. But when I was young, I was like naive, right?
It can be a little bit disheartening where you, like you said, you're not saying your food is the best, but it's like, I put a lot of effort into the food, but now the market doesn't appreciate that.
Yeah, correct.
So, I feel a lot of people might fall into a cycle where they would then maybe complain, right? Which is, oh, it's not fair. People don't respect the food, but actually you need to adapt, right? Which is, okay,
correct.
how can I adapt with the market? Which
Yes.
is, I need to also do the idea as well, right? I need to also
correct.
focus on that.
I feel like the youth nowadays don't prioritize traveling.
Okay.
But I feel like traveling is really important. It really broadens your mind in terms of things. But anyway, sorry, back to the thing.
But no, it's a good point,
sorry.
right? Okay, so
traveling, I mean, you go to places and like maybe you have like, I don't know, example, when we go to Japan and then maybe you have a miso ramen.
Okay.
And then you think like, ramen's pasta.
uh-huh.
Miso can go well with pasta. Why not I try
okay.
miso with, I don't know, beef strips or like, fried egg or something.
Understand?
It's just what you see outside and then you bring it back to what you're having, what you have locally.
You guys have got halal cert, right?
Yes.
So what was the decision to say, okay, do you know what? Let's prioritize our halal cert. Let's go down that route, because there's a lot of cafes where halal cert is on the way.
Understand.
They're sort of in the process.
Yeah,
but
okay.
I mean, for you guys, you guys are really proud of that.
Yeah, okay.
I see it when you go there, it's there.
Yeah, okay.
Talk about it in the video. What was the decision behind that?
Well, I'm a revert, just for the viewers to know, and I think that was 70% of the choice. I think coming in and then when I converted, I had the business, and I was like, okay, you know what? I'm not the best practicing revert. I'll be honest with that, but I'm doing whatever I feel is best in my capacity, right?
I mean, because it's a personal.
Yeah, it's a personal
right?
thing. So when I had the business and I reverted, I was like, I kind of want to make sure that my business also, I don't want to say the word halal, but I wanted it to be as if like I'm doing whatever, my best, in my own scope.
Okay, selamat datang semua ke Cari Makan Podcast bersama saya Riz William, di mana kita nak cerita a little bit about F&B industry, yalah segala-gala pasal F&B. So hari ni saya ada satu guest yang yalah dari industri F&B, mungkin dia behind the scenes sikit. So this is one of the first times dia muncul kat depan. So guest saya hari ni, Neil, apa khabar? How are you?
Hey Riz, I'm good, thank you.
Good?
Yep, super good.
How's things?
Awesome, really good. Yeah.
So maybe for the viewers, you could just introduce yourself a little bit.
Yeah, sure. So as Ray said, name's Neil. Been in the industry close to 14 years now. I started all the way from the bottom, so just someone washing dishes, someone making coffee. A little bit of information. I even dropped out of school and pursued this whole career.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah. And made it to where I am today. Fast forward, I've worked in a few F&B corporations you may have known, so stuff like Loop Holding, so that's Bus Bear Tea Life. There's BIG Grocer. My most recent job was with Din Tai Fung.
Okay, wow.
And obviously I have my own cafes on the side. This year, primarily, I've decided to actually quit my 9 to 5 and focus on my own brand. So we just opened a second outlet.
Oh.
Yeah, so that's just the gist of it. Yeah, Yeah.
That's the 14 years condensed.
14 years condensed, yeah. There's obviously a lot more to it, yeah.
But I mean, I think we first met at Fox, right? Which was a few years ago, right? Then we we sort of been chatting a bit.
Correct.
And we met at Din as well. Like that was last year, I think.
Yes,
right?
correct, yep.
So like one of the things was actually when you sit down and talk, can see behind the scenes, got quite a lot of experience in F&B.
Yep.
And like you said, now quit the 9 to 5, focusing fully on Fox Paradox.
Yes,
right?
correct. Yes,
second
correct.
outlet.
Yes,
right?
second outlet, correct.
So I mean, would you say that is how you Cari Makan now? It's like full time with your own outlet?
Oh, definitely. Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
But then okay, so you mentioned dropping out of school, right?
Yep.
Was it straight into F&B or how was that journey to getting into F&B?
So I dropped out doing my O levels.
Okay.
It was right before the exam actually. 2 days before, told my parents I'm not going to do it.
Okay.
My first job obviously was not F&B straight away.
Okay.
It actually was just in retail. So I worked for British India.
Okay.
Yeah, selling clothes.
Okay.
For like 3 months.
Okay, wow.
And then what happened was I straightway jumped into fitness. What I mean by fitness is I was working for fitness first.
Okay.
But I was selling memberships. So I was those guys who calls you on the phone, go,
Okay.
hey, your friend just joined, come in for 2 weeks trial. So I did extremely well.
Okay.
I moved from Penang to KL, they transferred me. And then fast forward, I went to Thailand for a bit, then I came back. So I
Okay.
came back, I always loved coffee. Like I was having like 10 cups a day, 15 cups a day.
Wow.
But this was during the time when third wave coffee wasn't out yet.
Okay.
It was still Starbucks, San
Understand.
Francisco, you know. The third wave coffee was just coming up into KL. So I did a coffee course with one of these establishments, Coffex. They're
Okay.
quite big within the industry. Hoping to open my own place straight away.
Okay.
But after doing the course, I found out coffee was more than pushing buttons. You know, there was so much more to it. So they said, hey, you did the course with us. Why not come work with us for a year? So I worked at one of the outlets.
Okay.
At that point of time, Coffex was servicing BIG. So BIG meaning big supermarket.
Yes, right.
Yeah, so big supermarket, I think in 2011 or 12, they're one of the first few people to like bring this whole cafe, Australian Melbourne vibes to the scene, right? So
Yes,
Coffex
right.
was servicing their coffee part. And what I mean by that is Coffex was supplying beans and we were supplying the baristas. Yeah, so I was front facing. So I worked for a year, and during this year, because I was front facing, I had a lot of opportunities to meet investors.
Okay.
Yeah, so basically throughout the whole 14 years within the F&B time, opened a lot of shops with different investors, learned a lot of different things, and yeah, fast forward to now. Yeah,
So I guess it kind of started with that first barista experience.
it
right?
did. Yeah,
That was when you kind of, I guess knew like this is something you want to focus on long term, is it?
correct. I mean, at first it was just more of like, hey, I like coffee, I want to have a coffee shop.
Okay.
But when I started working like in the actual coffee shop, talking to customers, it changed my whole perspective, and it really got me into like, oh, I really love coffee.
Okay.
I really love this whole cafe scene. I really want to do it. Yeah. A bit of a side note, I was actually having a lot of personal issues.
Okay.
Like I was very introvert. I couldn't talk to people. I couldn't even be like this
Okay. Wow.
until I started working in the coffee industry.
I see.
Yeah,
Interesting.
because a customer came up to me. He was like, "Hey, this is really good coffee. You made my day." And it was an immediate switch. Like, "Hey, I can make people happy. I can actually feel confident about myself."
Understand.
So that was what trajected the whole coffee thing, basically.
So I guess it's kind of like for some people, right, when they go into, I guess, a dream industry, right?
Yep.
So they've kind of had a vision, okay, I want to do this, I want to do that.
Yep.
And then when they actually start to do it, they realize maybe it's not for them.
Yeah, correct.
But for you, it was the opposite. When
Yes.
you went in, you realized actually this is something I really want to do.
Yep, correct.
Not just because you enjoy it, but it unlocks that, I guess, personal development side
Yes,
as well, right?
correct, exactly. Yeah.
Okay. So you mentioned, okay, studying there, barista, met some investors, then over the years,
Yep.
a lot of different ventures,
Correct.
right? What was the first, I guess, independent venture you did?
Okay. The first one was Butter and Beans.
Okay.
Yeah. Not sure whether it's still around. No, I think it is still in Section 17. That was with this investor called Alex.
Okay.
He owns quite a few famous cafes now still.
Okay.
So my first venture was with him.
Okay.
Gave me the opportunity to sort of set up the whole bar.
Okay.
It wasn't such a serious role. It's compared to my second one, where it was full-fledged, where here's the money, do what you need to do. Yeah.
Okay. So the first one was a little bit more hand-holding.
The first one was because he already had existing cafes.
Okay.
And what he did was just copy and paste. By that time, he didn't have any coffee experience or bar experience. When I mean bar, I mean like just coffee and drinks.
okay.
Yeah. So I came in to set up just the bar section, set up the team, build up the SOPs and all that. But the area, the site was already there. And so the second one, it was like, here's the money, go find a site, go find an ID, go find a contractor, and build it up.
So basically run with it, right?
Run of it.
Okay.
Yeah. So that was a huge learning curve for me because I was still young. I think I was still like 22. Yeah, 22
Okay,
when it
wow.
happened. Yeah, 22.
So, I mean, coming from someone you mentioned quite introverted, right?
Yeah.
So introverted, like you've been a barista, you've done one venture, now to suddenly have the responsibility, basically do everything yourself.
Yeah.
How did you actually figure it out? Because that's a big step. I mean, even like a lot of people now just hearing that would probably be like, whoa.
So a part of it was when I did leave school. Obviously, back then there's a stigma: no education, no money, no future. Right? There's that stigma, right? I wanted to prove to my parents, like, hey, or just to myself, like, even without education, I can live the life I want. I can live that life. So I think that really pushed me a lot to just find a way. The there wasn't. I mean, there was Google then, but there wasn't. There wasn't.
Wasn't
so
like it is
yeah,
now,
it
right?
wasn't.
Yeah.
It was just me, just like, okay, my previous site, like at the location. Okay, so the water inlet goes here, water outlet goes here. Oh, I need this, I need that.
Okay.
Don't get me wrong. There's a lot of errors. There's a lot of mistakes.
But that's sort of how you learn, right? You go
Yeah,
through those mistakes.
but it
right?
was just me, going to the outlet, studying every single thing that I can. I had no one to guide me at that point of time. It was just me, and then I just did it.
Okay.
Yeah,
So I guess part of it was that drive, right? That wanting to prove,
correct.
to your parents, yourself.
Yeah.
So that's sort of, I guess, what made it work. Right?
Yes, correct. Basically,
So, okay, you mentioned trial and error.
yeah.
Did you find that, okay, once you sort of done that one, that helped with the next one, then it's sort of, how did you go from, okay, one, a bit of hand-holding working together, another one fully yourself.
Yeah.
Then after that, I mean, I'm sure there was more after that.
Yeah,
right?
of course. So whatever I learned from the second stall, which was very hands-on, whenever I met a new investor, I was more confident. So basically, I could tell them what they want to hear and what I need. As compared to the first one where I was like, okay, let me check, or let me speak to
Okay.
the contractor. This was more like, hey, I need this for this, for this, for this. Yeah.
So you kind of find your knowledge and I guess your competence goes up.
Correct,
right?
yeah.
Okay. So after that was just a case of, okay, another outlet, another coffee shop, or like, how did that journey sort of go
Right, okay.
to where you are now?
After that, it was a few more investors. And I got a bit tired of it actually.
Okay.
As you know, with investors, it's never really yours. They tell you, yeah, I'll give you 25% equity, blah, blah, blah.
Partnership, right?
Partnership,
Yeah.
blah, blah. It's
Yeah.
always that conversation, right? At the end of the day, it's never. It's never that, which is fine. It's their money, I understand. But when I was young, I was like naive, right?
I think everyone goes through that.
Yeah.
Right? When you're young, you kind of have the idealistic vision,
Yeah,
right?
Yeah. So obviously, it was investor, a few more, and then I just got a bit tired, and I
Okay.
was like, you know what, I don't wanna do this anymore. So I actually lost a bit of passion for coffee and the whole F&B industry.
Okay.
I took a break for a year,
Okay.
just doing nothing. Just like I just didn't want to do anything. For a short while, it's getting a bit personal, but for a short while, it did damage me inside because I felt like coffee helped me get over so many things. It helped me build character.
Yes.
And then suddenly to have like investors just ruin everything, I didn't want to come back to it anymore.
Understand. It's
Well,
got that negative association,
Yeah,
right?
but obviously after a year, you need some money back, right?
That's right.
Yeah, so I decided to come back to F&B, but I was lucky enough to sort of venture to corporate F&B. And what I mean by this is when I started my F&B career, it was straight away investor. So I wasn't reporting. I never worked in corporate before.
Yes.
It was always like me and the boss. Let's set this up. Done.
Like very sort of, I guess, private venture, right?
Yeah, I didn't know what departments was, what procurement department
All the-
was,
yes, all the
what marketing.
processes,
I
right?
didn't know this existed. But I was fortunate enough that BIG. So BIG during that point of time, one of the bosses left, and Village Grocer bought over the supermarket. And during this time, Village Grocer did not buy over the F&B section. So I knew one of the bosses who went over from that, and he asked, "Hey, what are you doing? I need some help to set up the whole F&B." So I was very lucky to know him and get offered the job. So then I went to corporate F&B.
Okay.
I was very confused what's going on. Why?
It's quite a change, right?
Yeah, why am I telling purchasing department? Why am I giving them three quotations? Where I already know what's the best price.
Yes.
All these things I didn't know what was, or a lot of things. I didn't like it at first, but I learned to love it. Because actually all these structures was like, oh, this is how a company grows. This is how you grow as an individual. So then that's when I told myself, like, okay, you know what? I wanna progress my way up in the F&B corporate line.
Understand.
Yeah.
So it's kind of gone from a very sort of, I guess, individual,
Yeah.
working with investors. Like you said, when in that sort of environment, it's you and it's just a few of you.
Yep, correct.
Kind of do what you want.
Yeah, correct.
Figure it out.
Yeah.
Then you go into corporate. There's processes.
Yeah,
There's that,
correct.
etc.
So then I decided to stick into F&B corporate for a while. So I joined a few corporations. I gained as much knowledge as I can. And then, fast forward. In between also, there were some ventures.
Okay.
Very quick ventures. Open for 6 months, sell. Open for 6 months, sell.
Okay.
Yeah. But Fox being the most biggest one, basically. Yeah.
Would you say that is, I guess, your first or your main passion, where it's your project that you could say, this is mine? Is that why it's like it's kind of stuck?
Okay. I think there's two sides to it. One side is that, but the other side is, as I said, I wanted to climb the corporate ladder in F&B, right? I wanted to be someone for myself, to prove to myself. Fox Paradox was always a side hustle. It was always like, hey, I live there. I want a side business. I want extra income. I know what I'm doing already. Just insert SOPs. get a team I can trust, and they let run. It was always just meant to be that,
Okay.
you know.
I see.
But my last two jobs, I won't get into details what happened.
Okay.
It switched that thought process. It kind of was like, it then went back to me 10 years ago. It was like, I don't want to work for anyone again. You know, I hate whatever corporate stands for. I want to go back to building my own business.
So would you say that
Yeah.
that kind of passion came back a bit? Was it?
It did, definitely. Yeah, for sure.
Because I think passion is interesting, right? Because like I can definitely emphasize when you're passionate about something. Like for me, it would be doing videos,
Yeah.
food videos. When you're really passionate about it, you just enjoy it.
Yeah.
You do it, you love it, you love the game, right? And then there does become a time where you can easily get burnt out and the passion sort of
course.
goes. Then you have that feeling of you start to maybe not enjoy it.
Yeah.
Because it used to be a passion.
Yeah.
Now it's not. And then like you said, you go back to it, it makes you feel more
Correct.
frustrated with it.
Yeah.
But then the passion is still sort of there. Maybe taking that time out, going through corporate
Yeah.
was what it was needed to bring it back.
Oh, for sure.
Into it.
For sure. I think that's one aspect. But I think on passion also, I think in every industry, I think with passion, like what you said, right? It's always during that time. I think it's because like sometimes like maybe we're attracted to that industry because of what the industry stands for. So for example, maybe like let's say Instagram, for example, right?
Okay.
I mean, like maybe like 6-7 years ago, it was all about like aesthetic pictures, aesthetic videos.
Yes.
And then now it just become like, you know what I mean,
Yeah,
right?
yes,
It's no more aesthetic or it's no more creative driven.
It's sort of lost that a bit, right?
Yeah, you know? So maybe like at that point of time, you were attracted to the industry. I'm not saying you were just saying in general,
Yes,
right?
yes.
But obviously the passion is still there, and maybe sometimes you come back and it's not that like you're burnt out, but maybe like that in the need for what you liked is not there anymore.
It's because it's kind of changed.
Yep.
But I guess, I don't know whether it's need or something, it's still maybe a bit nostalgic for a certain way.
Yep.
But it's not quite there anymore.
Correct.
So of course there will be a misalignment, right?
Yes, correct. It's like cafe industry, like the cafe industry right now, right? I'm not saying Fox has the best food, don't get me wrong, but what I'm trying to say is that I think 6 years ago, customers would prioritize a restaurant or a cafe which has quality food or good food. Nowadays, it's like the food just has to be decent, but the ID is more important because I want to go there, get a photo.
Yes.
And that's the current market demand, right? Not saying that that's wrong. Obviously, we have to adapt as business owners,
right.
correct? But a part of me, of course, is saddened. You know, it's like you will see a cafe. And once again, I'm not saying Fox is the best food. I'm not saying that. Don't get me wrong. I'm just saying that I know customers prioritize ID over a better food or better beverage. You know what I'm trying to say? Yeah.
And I guess if you've come from somebody where you've put your priority on the food, which is I'm going to make the food really good, this is going to be my focus, then maybe if you could see, okay, now the market wants good ID, Instagrammable, the food is not as good, but they're choosing that over mine because of that, it can be a little bit disheartening where you, like you said, you're not saying your food is the best, but it's like I put a lot of effort into the food, but now the market doesn't appreciate that.
Correct.
So, you know, I feel a lot of people might fall into a cycle where they would then maybe complain, right? Which is, oh, it's not fair. People don't respect the food. But actually, you need to adapt, right? Which is, okay, how can I adapt with the market? Which is, I need to also do the idea as well, right? I need to also focus on that. So, okay, specifically for Fox Paradox, when did you guys open the first outlet?
We opened during MCO, literally.
Okay. So that would have been what, around 5 years now?
5 years. But we didn't operate until after MCO was over.
I see. And then now just recently opened second outlet.
Yes, correct.
Right? So I mean, I guess maybe we could talk a little bit about Fox Paradox. So what exactly is your main concept that I guess differentiates you from other cafes?
Okay.
So that you've done a lot of ventures, a lot of things over the years. What sets Fox Paradox apart?
Well, for me, when I opened Fox Paradox, and also the reason why the name Paradox was when guests or when consumers come over, I wanted them to offer something that's valuable, you know? And what I mean by that is like, for example, like a French toast. A French toast is not just French toast, it's sriracha French toast. It's a bit of, I hate to limit it to the word fusion, but in a way, it's sort of fusion / creative. Like, if someone wants to have avocado on toast, they can do that at home. They don't need to come to my cafe and have it. I do have that option, of course, but the idea is that I always want to give consumers an experience. Something that is like, oh, wow, you can mix miso with sriracha or something. You know, example, something like that.
But I would say personally, because I mean, I've been to Fox Paradox. Obviously, you came to do the video.
Yep.
I've been myself, I think, at least twice.
Yep.
Just go.
Yep.
Because I do find the food really good in the sense of
Thank you.
it's. I'm not just saying it because you're here as well.
Yeah,
like,
okay.
generally go, like, because it is something different.
Yep.
You could almost, in some ways, argue some of the menu is a little bit out there in the sense of it's not typical menu.
Yep. Correct.
So I guess that's been an intentional design, which is, okay, we don't want to just make another, like you said, avocado and toast or
Yep.
another, you know, I don't know, pasta.
Yep.
We want to do something different.
Yes. Correct.
But what's been the inspiration behind each specific dish? Is it something you come up with, your chef comes up with?
Okay. That's honestly through traveling.
Okay.
And that's something I don't know whether I have time to talk about, but I always feel like the youth nowadays don't prioritize traveling.
Okay.
But I feel like traveling is really important. You know, it really broadens your mind in terms of things. But anyway, sorry, back to the thing.
But no,
Okay.
it's a good point,
sorry.
right? Okay, so
Traveling, yeah. I mean, you go to places and like maybe you have like, I don't know, example, maybe you go to Japan and then maybe you have a miso ramen.
okay.
And then you think like, ramen's pasta.
Uh-huh.
Miso can go well with pasta. Why not I try
okay.
miso with, I don't know, beef strips or like, you know, fried egg or something.
Understand?
You know? It's just what you see outside and then you bring it back to what you're having, what you have locally.
Which I guess if we look at, like you said earlier, the word fusion, right?
Yeah.
That is really what fusion is, right?
Yeah.
Fusion isn't just taking one ingredient and just sticking it on a plate with something else and calling
correct.
it fusion, right? But actually thinking, okay, how could this work with another ingredient?
Yeah.
So does that come from yourself? Like,
For myself, yeah.
okay.
Yeah.
So the
But
menu.
I credit my chef, of course.
okay.
Yeah, he's the executioner. So he
Understand?
tames me down a bit. So I go in
Okay.
like, hey, let's do this. And he's like, I don't think that will work. Okay, then try and make it work. And then like, you know, we sort of tame it down and then it comes out.
Understand?
Yeah.
That's kind of how it works. So I guess, would you call yourself a creative person? Like,
I want to say yes, but I don't want it to sound like arrogant or
Yeah,
like,
okay,
you know,
understand.
or pollo.
Yeah,
right.
but I think a lot of like, I guess anyone who has that sort of, I guess, creative mindset is a bit like that. You've got these ideas. You need someone to sort of tame it down a bit and say,
Yes.
okay, not to say no, but and again, not to say let's be realistic, but how can we actually make it work?
Yeah, correct.
Because like you said, you come in like, yeah, why don't we do this and this? And
Yeah.
you need someone to say, okay, slow down. Let's start with A and then
Correct.
that sort of thing. So the menus sort of come from that process where you see something and have an idea, and then it sort of goes through R&D with the chef.
Yep, pretty much.
Understand.
It's always like he'll ask me like, no boss, cannot lah boss. Don't taste nice, boss. And then,
okay.
let's just try. And then he tames it down and we try it. We're like, oh, this is good. Yeah.
Because there is a lot of combos I see where the first instinct would be, really?
Yeah,
you know?
okay.
Like that's what I mean. I mean, I would say it's a little bit out there sometimes.
Yeah.
It's not your typical cafe food.
Correct.
But for me, I like it because there is something like, I don't know how you say it, like kuna, right? The taste sort of
True,
like,
yeah, correct.
it goes well together, right? So one of the things for Fox Paradox is you guys have got halal set, right?
Yes.
So what was the decision to say, okay, do you know what? Let's prioritize our halal cert. Let's go down that route, because there's a lot of cafes where halal cert is on the way.
Understand.
You know, they're sort of in the process.
Yeah,
But
okay.
I mean, for you guys are really proud of that.
Yeah, okay.
You know, I see it when you go there, it's there.
Yeah, okay.
Talk about it in the video. What was the decision behind that?
Well, I'm a revert, just for the viewers
okay.
to know, and I think that was 70% of the choice. You know, I think coming in and then when I converted, I had the business, and I was like, okay, you know what? I'm not the best practicing revert. I'll be honest with that, but I'm doing whatever I feel is best in my capacity, right?
I mean, because it's a personal
Yeah, it's a
journey,
personal
right?
thing. So when I had the business and I reverted, I was like, I kind of want to make sure that my business also, I don't want to say the word halal, but I wanted it to be as if like I'm doing whatever, my best in my own scope.
Understand?
You know, if I have this business, it's F&B, why not just get a halal license then? Yeah. It was never intention to go down the halal route. But only once I
okay.
converted, I was like, okay, let's do it.
Understand? So I guess that's another way in which this business particularly reflects on you, right?
Yeah, correct.
Which is it's your ideas, your recipes, sort of your personality,
Yeah.
and also a bit of yourself in that business,
Correct.
right? Okay.
The second part, which is the 30%, which I mentioned earlier, that actually came after. So what happened was, when I was making the decision to do it, I then realized there's actually not a lot of halal restaurants or cafes. We have a lot of halal big chains. So, for example, like, Dolly Dim Sum,
Yes.
big establishments which have like 20, 30 over kind of stuff.
Yes.
But those kind of establishments are very traditional. They're not creative in that way. So part of me also wanted to be like, I wanted to give, once again, it's value, right? As I mentioned earlier, I wanted to give value to my customers who were looking for halal cafes or halal establishments. That wasn't just like, hey, just this. It's like, oh, I'm coming here to try something new. So that was the 30%. That was when I started the journey. Yeah.
Understand?
Yeah.
So I mean, the majority comes from South.
Yeah.
And then there's that extra 30%, which is okay. This would actually be some value that we add.
Yes, correct.
Because I think there are a lot. I mean, cafe culture. I mean, like you said, compared to what 6-7 years ago, is very different now. There's a lot out there. There's a lot of Muslim-friendly places where the food is halal. But there's not many small I mean, not to say you guys are small in that sense, but compared to big chains, right? Where it's not halal.
Correct.
I don't know, maybe it's a choice. Maybe some people think the process is quite a challenging process. And I mean, it's not easy. But I think there is one way you stand out and give value, right?
Correct.
Because there is a sudden demographic who wants to see that, right?
Yes, correct.
Saying Muslim friendly is not just enough, right? They actually want to see the paperwork.
Correct.
And I think I spoke to Amir, right, recently. You guys had to take kombucha off the menu, right?
Yeah.
Because to keep that halal status, right?
Correct. So I think for that, right, because I think the halal market, I call it, I think has been booming over the last 4 or 5 years. I think prior to that, it wasn't really a big thing. So I think Jakim itself was not getting a lot of inquiries or a lot of work. Not work, sorry, but you know what?
Like the, I guess, projects or whatever.
So obviously, with all companies, you only learn new things as you have more projects, right? So I think as the halal market sort of grew, kombucha was one of the things that also was getting halal certified, or more restaurants were registering. And I think what happened was, although it was able to be halal certified before, now because it's not halal certified, because I think maybe they're like, oh, this is kombucha. Oh, what's the process? Oh, actually, there's a fermentation. And I think that's why it had to be removed, because I think then they found out was, you can have a non-alcohol kombucha, but where are the variabilities for you to make sure that that batch
line, right?
Stays consistent, because every batch is done by batch, right?
Yes, exactly right. And it's fermentation, so there's always going to be that natural process once it starts, right?
Yeah.
But I guess that's another example of when you put a priority on it.
Yeah.
Like it's a decision you have to make, right? Which is, okay, it used to be fine.
Yeah.
And then as times change, as guidelines get updated, we have to adapt, right?
Yeah, correct. I mean, it was a bummer at first because it was one of our top sellers. But yeah, we had to adapt, had to create an in-house tea, come up with a recipe, redo everything. But yeah, adapt.
That's, I guess, that goes right back to what you said with that first sort of venture is try and error, right? You go through that process, you learn, you figure out, you adapt, right?
Yeah.
So, I mean, one of the things you mentioned, I think it was probably before we started, which was the team, right?
Yeah.
Because for your second outlet, you said for the launch, right? You were there for one day, then off, and then you said, I trust the team, they manage it.
Yeah.
How did you manage to build a team, especially since the business is kind of a reflection of you, right?
Yeah.
The menu, the vibe, the story. How do you manage to build a team where you can, I guess, not to say outsource it, but let them run it, trust them with it?
Yeah, okay. So I think there's two parts to that. I think the first part was, once again, I don't want to come out arrogant, but because I mean,
Poyo, right?
Yeah, Poyo. Because I mean,
Poyo sikit lah.
Poyo sikit lah. Because I've been in industry for so long, I already know what works and what doesn't work. I already know what SOPs to implement that will make the operation smooth.
Understand.
So that was one part.
Okay.
But of course, if you don't have a team to execute, no point, right? So the team part, I think how I let them run was, from whatever I learned from my past jobs, like when I was in Loop, I had a really good time there because the boss was like, I trust you to execute. You come to me when you have a problem, I help you overcome. I'm not gonna micromanage you, right? And it was great. We opened 60 outlets in the span of 6 months. I'm not saying I did all the work, but
that's fast, right?
I was running most of the things, when we first started Bus Spare. And then I moved on to another company after that. And the work culture and how the boss handled things, I was like, I always got demotivated. I always didn't feel like, oh, I want to do this. Like, oh, if you're like that, then why should I do it? I just do your way. I just wait for you.
Okay.
It's a bit negative. I know. I don't mean to come off negative, but that was how I felt.
Understand?
Okay. So what I learned was like, I gotta treat my team how I want to be treated. So I remember like what happened at previous places, what worked for me, right? And of course, not everyone's gonna respond that way.
Yes,
You
right.
find someone who's in the same wavelength, right? And that's how I trusted the team. Was like I told them expectations. I told them that you run it. You have a problem. You come to me. I'll help you straight away.
Which is, I guess, empowerment, right? Empowering them to
Yeah.
treat it like their own venture,
Correct.
right?
Decision making was always giving back to them. I mean, you come into a conversation knowing what you want, but you let them have the decision making, right? And I think that builds a lot of, I say, empowerment in them.
And I guess trust, right? There has to be a lot of trust, right?
Don't get me wrong, that this stuff always happens, right? Of course, there were a few issues in there. Don't get me wrong, but I think 80% of it is, like I said, trust, and learning to let go.
Okay.
Yeah, it's very hard as a business owner to let go.
But okay, so how do you learn to let go? That's the thing, right? Because there's that temptation of, it's your baby, right? It's your thing, right? You want to come in and...
There's some moments where I go a bit crazy, I'm not going to lie. Okay. Yeah. But learn to let go, I think, is always reminding yourself, like, what you personally want. It's like, I always tell myself, like, okay, if I don't let go, I'm just going to be stuck with 2 stores. And I cannot grow. Because I can't take care of 100 stores, right?
Yes, right.
So learning to let go was always reminding myself, like, hey, if you have 100 stores, are you gonna, can you control this?
Right. You're gonna go to everyone.
And it's always reminding myself what is the bigger picture. Because I think most of the time, I don't know about other business owners, but I think maybe me, when I do want to interfere, it's mostly ego thing. If I take a step back, do you really need to interfere? Isn't just your ego saying that you have to prove yourself right or tell him there's a better way to do it?
Understand?
You know what I mean?
It's kind of like it's not the thing itself.
Yeah.
It's kind of a manifestation of something inside you.
Yeah.
That's coming out.
Correct.
Like you said, ego or trying to prove yourself.
Correct. I don't know. I can't speak for other owners, but I think that was mostly me. And I was realizing, like, hey, it shouldn't matter if he's doing it that way. Just as long as he's meeting the deadline or whatever it is, right? So those conversations with myself.
Understand?
Yeah.
So obviously there is that element of letting go.
Yep.
How do you balance letting go? And there's a different way, there's a different understanding with how they do it versus the way I would do it.
Yeah.
But then also, maybe I've let go a bit too much and it's not hitting the standard I would expect.
Yeah.
How do you strike that balance?
Oof, it's a tough one.
It is tough.
Yeah.
It's no easy.
Yeah,
that's why I waited a bit before this question comes in, right?
That's tough one. I mean, that's what I'm going through right now, actually, because now I'm back here full time, right? So I'm seeing a lot more things which I didn't see before.
Okay.
I don't have the perfect answer for you
Okay.
because I myself mentally am going through that right now
Okay.
with the team. But what I found has worked before in previous situations, which maybe weren't as big, was, I think, conversations. When I mean conversations, I don't mean like, why is this done like that? No.
Understand.
It's more like, hey, look, I noticed this happened. This is what I'm going through.
Understand.
Just got this happening. It's not your fault, but can you tell me, like, what was your thought process? Why this happened?
Communication,
right? And then they tell you why it happened, blah blah. And then you go like, hey, from my past experience, I tried this. What do you think of this?
Understand.
A lot of, like, going down to them and then talking to them. Because everyone does something for a reason, right?
Yes, right.
Someone doesn't just purposely do something. They don't want to purposely mess up something, right?
Yes, there's a thought process behind it, and most of the time they do what they think is right at the time, right?
Yeah. So it's just more of like going down and talking to them, understanding why they did it, and then offering a better solution. But I think most important is telling your side. Most of the time, I feel bosses or people above you never tell you why they're doing it, and that way you're down. I hate to use the word downline, but downline will never understand what your goals are or why you're doing it. If they understand what you're doing, they may have a better decision making or better thought process to it. Right?
I mean, it goes back to incentives, right? What's everyone's individual incentives?
Yeah.
There's a reason why they do a certain thing.
Correct.
And I think especially like if you could probably apply that to like the corporate, the incentives there are very different from a small business.
Correct.
Right? You have to understand why people are doing certain things.
Correct.
I mean, I guess from the sounds of it, this comes down to human resources, right? Management, right?
Yeah.
Human it's a people thing.
Yeah.
It's not so much in this case specific processes about food or cafe management, but how do you manage individuals as people? Right?
Correct. Yeah.
What do you think the biggest challenge has been now with your own venture now coming out into 2 outlets?
Yeah.
versus, you know, you mentioned before, like when working on the consultancy basis, you know, 60 outlets.
Yeah.
You know, I'm sure there's some big challenges there.
Yeah, correct.
I mean, but in terms of specifically as your own business owner, what's the biggest challenge been?
Very direct, I guess. Like every business owner, sales. You
Okay.
know, yeah, everybody wants sales, but I think more deeper than that. I would say, I don't know whether this is a bit off topic, but I
Okay.
think
there's no off topic.
yeah,
here,
I
right?
think more of understanding where your brand wants to go. I don't know whether that makes sense.
Okay.
And what I mean by that is like sales is always constant, right? So yes, you know, we're always trying to fight for more sales. Who isn't, right?
Yes.
But I think it's more of like now you have your own brand. Like, okay, what do I do in the next 3 years? What do I do in the next 5 years? What do I do in the next 10 years?
Where are you taking this?
It's like, am I just stopping at 2 shops? Or am I stopping at 3 shops? Or now I want to do a bakery. Now pizza is trending. I want to do pizza.
Okay.
I think it's more of that. You know, with a company, you're always guided by VCs, investors. Oh, 100 stores, we're aiming for that.
I mean, they have their goals,
yeah.
their vision, right?
And don't get me wrong, I do want to open 100 stores, you know, but it's not easy when you're by yourself, right?
Yes.
It's like, you know what to do, but how do I get there, right? I guess that's the biggest challenge. It's like right now, it's like, yeah, I have a short-term plan,
Okay.
you know, but what happens after that, right?
Where's
You
it sort of going,
because
right?
you're the decision maker.
Yes.
You're always, I don't know how to say this, like you're always like, not saying you're not firm, but you're in that position where you can change the route of your business.
Yes.
So you're constantly challenging yourself.
Yes.
Internal battle, I
Yes,
guess.
yes.
I don't know whether that makes sense. I don't know whether it answers your question.
It makes sense because I can sort of relate, which is when you're reporting to like someone else, like you said, VCs, top management,
Yeah.
you're kind of following their vision and your job is to implement,
Yeah,
right?
correct.
Yes, you have your ideas, you have maybe some suggestions, but at the end of the day, it's their call.
Yeah, correct.
When the buck stops with you, if you did decide, hey, do you know what? Let's do pizza.
Yeah.
Nobody's gonna come in and say, hey, do you know what, Neil? That's not really aligned with our
Yeah,
vision,
correct.
because it's gonna be okay, boss. You know.
Yeah.
So it's very easy to get shiny object syndrome, right? Like, how about this? How
Yeah.
about that? Because there isn't really that sort of, I guess, overall, I guess, I don't know what it would be like. Not to say responsibility or guideline, because it comes from us.
Yeah, correct.
Right. So that I can relate to that as a challenge. I
Yeah.
understand sort of what you mean, because who dictates that other than yourself, right?
Yeah.
There isn't really that accountability,
True.
I
Yeah.
guess, system so much, right?
Something like that. So it's kind of like, yeah, we have our own vision and we have our own direction where Fox wants to be, but you're always constantly battling like, is this the right thing? You know, it's like they be open at the right locations at the alarm.
Okay.
You know what I mean?
Like those questions come in, right?
In internal battles, I would say, if that is sort of a thing. Yeah.
So how do you overcome that? What is there like a technique, or is there some sort of something you do to overcome that?
First thing is, you know, always trust the process. I really believe in that. As long as you're doing good and you're serving quality products or doing whatever you can, which is sort of ethical, trust the process. I mean, don't just sit there and do nothing, of course, but trust the process. That's the first thing that I always tell myself whenever like I'm faced with negative thought processes. Second thing is I always try to sit down and remind myself like, what is this for?
Okay.
What am I doing it for? What's your 5-year plan? Don't get distracted. Keep doing that.
Keeping that alignment, right?
Yes, pretty much. Yeah.
Okay. I think that's the thing, right? I think a lot of business owners will go through that process where it's more the thoughts, right?
Yeah, correct.
Right?
Yeah.
So how do you sort of overcome it, right?
Yeah.
So I guess there's obviously a big difference between acting on the consultation business for these brands and then doing it yourself.
Yep.
Is there anything you see where maybe the advice, like there's a lot of typical advice regarding things like SOPs, marketing, systemization, that when it comes from someone with, you know, hey, we're doing from 60 outlets in 6 months, that advice doesn't really apply to someone with 1 or 2 outlets. Is there any sort of, I guess, cliches you see around F&B where, yes, it applies well here, but if you're like a small guy with 1 or 2 cafes, actually you need to do something different?
Yeah, okay.
Because you've got that experience on both sides.
I understand. I think when it comes to store level, I mean running the store, I think both are hand in hand.
Okay.
But business development wise is 2 different things.
Okay.
What I mean by that is like, as a business owner, your goal is to make sure every store has a good P&L, right? The if one store's losing money, both stores are losing money essentially because one goes cover back. But as with all these companies, it's different, right? P&L at store level doesn't matter. It's hundreds. Yeah, you know, it's different. It's different type of thought process. So yeah, I think when it comes to business development, no, they both do not align. But running the store itself, there's a lot of things small business owners can take from corporate, which I feel is not implemented.
Okay.
Yeah.
What are some things you feel like maybe not implemented?
Okay, so for example, I have this thing called timbang.
Okay.
I call it timbang. Okay, and what I mean by that is a lot of small business owners,
Okay.
they don't get their team to timbang things.
Okay.
Okay, what I mean by this is, let's just say 1 kilo of coffee, if you use 20 grams, that's 55 cups, for example, right? So ideally, 1 kilo equals 55 cups. So by right, if you buy this, you can sell 55. But the problem is maybe like throughout the day, you got to calibrate, you got to taste the coffee, you messed up an order. So 55 cups from 40 cups. Suddenly your whole P&L is looking a bit messy.
Understand.
You don't know where you're losing money at, right? Now, coffee is not so bad because it's a product which can't be spoiled, right? So food, that's where it gets a bit messy.
Yes, right. Perishable.
That
sort of thing, right?
So like mushroom. So for example, you have 3 dishes that have mushroom. Chef takes the mushroom, put. Chef takes the mushroom and put. But my hand and your hand are 2 different things, right?
Okay.
Or during busy time, I'm panicking and taking more. Suddenly, instead of having 10 portions, you only use 3 portions.
Understand?
That food waste, I would say food timbang, food or food waste, not wastage because it is going out. This timbang thing is what makes or breaks all small business owners. Because they open a shop, you know, everything's going smoothly, food is good, but they're losing money.
And it's those small little things, right?
Yeah, and then someone tells me 20 grams of mushroom ain't going to make a difference. But hey, 20 grams over 100 orders over 30 days.
Adds up, right?
Adds up.
And I guess maybe that's one of the things with the whole concept of is aga-aga, right? Where you're not really timbang, you're sort of like, you know, oh yeah, that would do. It's sort of about that, right?
Right. And they always argue me, what's busy? Chef can't timbang. But there's exercises or things you can implement. And what I usually do is, okay, let's first average out. So every chef takes out, for example, when I'm doing the recipe and costing, all 10 of you do one. So maybe it's 20, 30, 40, whatever lah. Then we take the average. So when we do our costing, we take the average price first. Second, I can't timbang, it's going to be busy. No worries. We find certain kitchen utensils which mimic the gram. This could be a measuring spoon.
So right?
This could be a DIY cup, or this could be, I don't know, some saucer that is similar to that grammage. And you always use that whenever you're going out. So you can find ways to fix it. Yeah.
So it's one of those things where, okay, this is the intention is we're going to do it like this.
Yeah.
Okay, there's some objections. How are we going to do it? Okay, let's figure out how to make it work.
Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, that's going to affect the P&L.
Correct.
Which is going to affect everything, right?
Yeah. So always will say that everywhere I go, chef was like, too busy, I cannot measure. I said, fine, chef, it's fine. You it's busy, I get it. Let's find a utensil that's going to help us at least average out the gram that's going out per serving.
Was that lesson something that you got from that corporate
Yes.
F&B?
It was.
And then applied it?
Yeah. When I first joined BIG, this was the first time we introduced stock take.
Okay.
I never done stock take in all my past ventures.
Yeah, right. I mean, small businesses, right?
Yeah,
it's not common, right?
Didn't need to. I mean, also we were doing well. But anyway, long story short, yes, we've done basic stock take like, hey, I bought this, I sold this. Okay, I should have true balance. Very basic.
Yes.
But not at corporate level. And I mean corporate level is they were having Excel forms with exact ingredients or exact recipes of the dishes, right? So everything is trackable. This comes in, this goes out. If I sold 10, I should have this.
Yes, right.
Our first 3 months, the stock take variance was at negative 40%, negative 30%. Both kitchen and bar, yeah?
So that's a big difference, right?
Big difference. You obviously have to dive down, right? And find out what's going on. Why we bought, you only sold 10, but why do we have negative, you know?
You're like, what's causing this?
Yeah, yeah. And then you start to deep dive, you start to find out, you know, yeah. And then, of course, the stock take variance start to balances, and then it comes out very clean P&L. Yeah.
So then that's that lesson, which is, okay, now you've had that experience there. Let's take that and apply it.
Yeah, correct.
To your own venture.
Yes, correct.
I mean, one comment I will make, because I've been in the kitchen at Fox Paradox, obviously to shoot video, right?
Oh, really?
Is, I mean, one of the things is you can kind of tell, and again, I'm not just saying this because you're here, you can kind of tell when you go into a kitchen, you can kind of get a vibe.
Yeah.
So one of the things that, I mean, when we first went to one in unpack, which was a few years ago, right, was the kitchen vibe is a proper kitchen.
Yeah.
it sounds silly, right? But I've been in a lot of kitchens, and some you go in, it's like you kind of struggle to think, how are they managing this at all?
Really?
Right?
I think our kitchen is quite basic, but
But
thank you.
it's
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
it's that the vibe, the energy. So now you've explained, okay, we've worked stuff out, we've done it. You can see, okay, that's why. That's how it's like this.
Yeah, okay.
Which I guess then it comes down to it's not an individual thing, which is, oh, this is the difference between an organized chef and a disorganized chef. Actually, it's a system.
Yeah, okay.
So it's about having that system. So now you've explained, okay, we actually do this timbang where we figure
Yeah.
it all out. It's like, okay, that sort of makes sense. And I guess that's also why when you go there, the food does come out a certain way.
Yeah.
So I can see how it's having an effect. So yeah, one observation, because some kitchens we go in, I won't name any names,
Yeah,
but
of
it's
course.
like you do sometimes think, how are they
Yeah, okay.
managing this?
Yeah, understood. Okay.
But yeah, that's the thing. It's only 20 grams, but
Yeah.
20 grams, 10 portions over 30 days.
Yeah.
It all adds up.
It all
right?
adds up. It all adds up.
What's I guess if you could go back, give one advice now based on
Yeah.
what you know now.
Okay.
When you first started, what would it be?
I'll give two advices. Is that
Okay.
possible? Yeah.
Yeah, two.
Yeah,
Buy one, get one free, right?
I always tell myself this. Let's say it started off just as a side business, right? I was never gonna be involved. I wish I made the decision to get involved.
Okay, interesting.
I wish, because now only I'm pushing it, right? And obviously, having a 9 to 5 salary versus your own salary is completely different, right? Yeah. So I wish I started it off as a business because I wasn't doing anything at that point of time. So I wish I did treat it as a business, not a side place to make, not a side hustle.
Okay.
That's the first thing. Second thing is ID. When I first started, I didn't have much money on me, and I made the decision to not make the cafe pretty, but focus on, like I said, on the food. And nothing wrong with that, but my growth to getting to where it is, I'm not saying it's super famous, but it's somewhat there, right? At least would have been faster, I wish I made the decision to like, oh, why don't you take on a personal loan or SME loan and actually invest in the ID? Because already the food was there. So the growth would have been much faster.
If you brought up that, I guess that Instagrammableness, that feel, the
correct.
look of it, right?
So those are the only two things I wish I did.
So specifically when you say not just treat it as a side hustle, but jump in, do you mean maybe if you could go back, you would consider stopping the 9 to 5 earlier and focusing, or?
So when I started Fox, I hadn't started my 9 to 5 yet.
Okay.
I was still it was just COVID, right? So I just got
okay.
let go. And I was like, okay, just open a side business and find a 9 to 5. Yeah. So I wish that I didn't take on those 9 to 5s.
And just focused on it, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because a lot of people, the advice is don't quit your 9 to 5 too soon, right?
Yeah.
Keep the side hustle, get them both growing, right?
Correct.
But then in this case, you're saying, no, if it was me, I would double down on the.
Correct. Yeah.
Okay. How about advice for other business owners? Maybe there's other people out there who they've got one cafe, they're looking to expand, they're kind of, maybe they are doing something as a side hustle and they've got their main 9 to 5. What would be your advice to other people? Maybe in a similar situation.
It will be okay. So it will be depending on the situation and the scenario. Of course, every individual will be different.
That's the disclaimer, right?
Yeah,
we have to put in the disclaimer.
Yeah. I wouldn't know what they want, but if they say their goal is to expand their own business, I would say first things first is proper P&L. Because the minute you open 2, 3, if you don't catch up on what actually you're losing money at, suddenly losing 2K, it becomes losing 6K. You get what I mean?
Yes, it multiplies. Right?
Yeah. So really deep dive what's happening. So when the second store opens, it's smooth. You're not ending up paying or losing money.
Understand?
Yeah.
Base that decision on good data, right?
Yeah, data. Yeah, right. Data. Exactly. Don't be limited by an area. Also, that's the second thing I always want to tell people. People will say, "Oh, I can't open here; it's too far." So that.
Okay.
It's like, no, you create the destination. You create the product. You create people to come to you. As long as it's good parking, this shouldn't be an issue.
Which is interesting because that advice is quite counter to what some people say, which is location is number one, right?
Yeah. So I think location is number one when you're running a very how do you say, corporate F&B or corporate business, something that doesn't need education, something that already has brand recognition.
Where you're just trying to get people walking by and they pop in, right?
Correct. But if you are a business owner and you have a quality product, you have a recipe from your grandmother or something, I don't know, something which is unique, I think it's never an issue.
because people will come for
Yeah,
that, right?
correct.
And that is one thing about, especially for your Ampang location,
Yeah.
is it's not to say it's not difficult. It's not in a very, I would say, obvious sort of place,
So
right?
that mall was dead 4 years ago. Yeah,
But like you've kind of proven that actually people will come for it, right?
correct. Yeah,
Because I mean, you guys have survived there,
Yeah,
thriving there,
correct.
right? To the point of being able to open a
correct.
second outlet.
Yeah,
So I guess it's testament that actually location isn't. If you've got something that people are willing to come to, like you said, as long as there's parking,
yeah,
as long as they can find it.
yeah, correct.
Mm.
And I mean, not asking you to open it in a remote desert or something like that.
I mean, yeah, that's
There must be some thought process,
yes,
obviously.
I mean,
yeah.
it can't just be anywhere, right?
Yeah. But I mean, don't ever let it be like, oh, I can't get a place in PJ or Bangsa or LCC. Don't let it stop you.
Don't let it be a limitation, right?
Yeah, correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I guess what's the future plans for you guys now? Obviously, second outlet just opened. You mentioned there's plans for 100, but there's like sort of, I mean, for the, I guess, next 1 or 2 years, where do you sort of see things?
Yeah. So short term goal, we have the bakery coming up next.
Oh, the new info here, bakery.
Yeah,
coming up.
bakery.
Oh, okay.
But bakery just to supply B2B or to my own to my own. Nothing for commercial.
right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Because right now it's like we're growing, so we need a bigger space.
Understand?
You know.
So it's almost like, is it going to be centralized bakery, right? Is it for both
In a way,
outlets?
yeah,
Ah,
with
okay.
with other added items. Because now I just launched the whole brownie thing, right?
Ah, yes.
So I'm trying to push a whole new, not say merchandise, but kind of like a gifting box. If that I don't know what to call that category.
I mean, yes, because it's not really merchandise, but it's sort of like, it's a product, right?
Yeah, it's a product. Yeah,
Yes.
it's a bit different from our food, right?
Yes.
So there's a whole plan for that.
Ah,
You know,
okay.
like more pastry items, more B2B online sales. You know, that's in the making.
Okay.
And then after that, 2 more stores.
2 more. Okay.
I'm right now prioritizing between Putrajaya.
Okay,
So here,
interesting.
yeah,
Okay,
so,
not
yeah,
far,
randomly,
right?
yeah, here,
Okay.
right, around here, or take a big gamble and just go Johor or Penang.
Wow.
Yeah,
I mean, the market.
Johor
there,
is like,
crazy, right?
yeah.
If you can get that market, it's
Correct.
a big market, right?
What I'm just a bit worried is that obviously Johor is trending now, right?
Yes.
I think by the time I'm ready or have the right enough money, I don't think it will have died down. So most likely it's Putrajaya, most likely.
And I guess one of the things if Putrajaya is it's still within that manageable area, right?
I can still go there if there's an issue, right? Yeah.
I mean, the Johor is a little bit on the,
Yikes, yeah.
but
Yeah.
you know, maybe that's a risk worth exploring, right?
It definitely is. And I think the minute Johor happens, then it's like now I'm still thinking like, oh, I'm an owner, I run everything, right? But the minute Johor happens, I know I have to think like, I was in corporate. Let go even more. That's like the conversation we had earlier.
Yes, right.
Yeah. So
Right.
that's also whether I'm ready for that or not. Yeah.
So I guess maybe it's more of a personal, ready to let go or not.
Most
right?
likely. Yeah, most likely. Yeah.
So I mean, obviously, is there any sort of like closing remarks to like invite people to come and taste, or any sort of like
Cruising remarks. Right?
closing remarks?
Oh, closing remarks. Sorry. okay.
Cruising, I don't know.
Yeah, what's a
slip of
cruising
the
remark?
tongue
Yeah.
under, like closing remarks, like inviting people to come and try your food, or any sort of closing words you want to give, advice.
I think I always say this on Fox Social itself. Obviously, we can't please every single person. Not everyone's gonna like our food, and for me, that's fine. But whoever has come and ever like had a bad experience, we're sorry. You know, and if you did, reach out, tell us what was wrong. You know, tell us what you didn't like, and we would love to invite you back again. You know, to try that dish again. Because sometimes errors are gonna happen. Maybe
Yes,
that
right.
you know, and I always want to be like, hey, I'm not saying that there's an excuse, but tell me what was wrong. Tell me what you didn't like. Come back again, try again on me, and if you didn't like it, that's fine. You know, I always say on socials like, you know, please tell me what you don't like. Yeah,
Which is important for feedback, right?
it is because most of the time like people just like 1 star and then nothing. So I don't know what to do with that.
Yes.
And for me, it's like if people tell us like what was wrong specifically, I always reach out to them like, hey, I noticed you said this. Please come back again whenever you're free on me. Try it, you know? Yeah.
I think there's that balance, right? Because you have to, like you said, you can't serve everyone.
Yeah.
How do you balance between, okay, I know that I can't serve everyone,
Yeah.
and then not letting you become a bit poyo about it, right? Which is when you get the reviews, be like, they're not our customer. You know, because there's a balance between
okay.
recognizing,
Yeah.
okay, maybe I can't serve you, but I like this approach, which is, okay, look, if there is something there, firstly, we're sorry.
Yeah.
Give us another chance.
Yeah.
Let us know. So then it's using that as feedback,
Correct.
not a case of using it as like, well, our food's not for everyone anyway, right?
Yeah. I mean, don't get me wrong. There are times where you get a bit like, of course, I have
But it's
to-
normal,
It's,
right?
it's normal,
Normal, right? Yes.
but I have to treat every individual as a second chance.
Yes.
Because I don't know, maybe there was a mess up. Maybe they grilled the thing too long. There's always issues, right? So for me, it's like I just treat it as no matter what the comment is, as long as it's something which is like a bit detailed. If it's 1 star, usually I don't. There's nothing for me to message about. But if they do give a detailed response, I'll always be like, hey, I noticed you saw this. Come back and try the same dish.
Yes.
I treat every customer like that. Yeah.
And I think that's one of the things in a market now where there is a lot of cafes, you
Yeah.
know, how do we stand out?
Yeah.
You know, one of the things is through customer service caring, right?
Correct. Yeah.
You know, like, I mean, you mentioned previously was at one point it was food.
Yep.
Then it became ID.
Yep.
I think one thing I can see now is the service is a big part,
Yeah.
which is, you know, like if you can hit that as well, where, okay, maybe the food's not great. Sometimes maybe the ID is not great, but if your service is tip top and you people feel like you really care about them, you know, that's sort of one of the ways you can stand out, right?
That's also something I tell a lot of my friends who want to do cafes as well. I didn't mention it earlier, sorry, but as long as your service is good, even if they leave a bad impression, let's say they didn't like your chicken chop rice at all. If a friend asks, "Hey, how was that cafe?" I didn't like the food, but the service was good, so you can go try it yourself. You know, there's always that there may be a positive,
Yes, exactly.
you know, result from it. But it's hard because I think service is a bit hard in the Malaysian market. You know, I think to have top tier service, it's like you have to pay a lot. Does that make sense? What I'm trying to say?
I think is you have to find the right people, right? I mean, you have to find the right people, and you have to factor that into your costing, right?
Yeah, correct.
When I mean, do you mean pay a lot in terms of the price of the food or the?
It's okay. So the right people is one thing, but those right people, they're never there with you forever, right? 2 years, 3 years, 1 year, whatever it is. But what I meant by pay, it's like you pay peanuts, you get monkeys. You know what I mean?
Understand.
You know,
Yes.
you pay something. There's obviously a bit more expectation to the job, but I'm not saying all. Don't get me wrong.
Yes.
But a higher probability of you.
I mean, it goes back to even something like ingredients, right?
Yeah.
You know, like if you want premium ingredients, you have to pay a bit more, right?
Yeah,
It's
okay.
one of those things you have to factor in, right?
Yeah.
Is if you want good service, you would have to pay for, I guess, people that can provide a good service,
Yeah,
right?
correct.
Which then you have to factor into P&L, right?
Yeah, correct.
And I guess if you talk about like, you know, you can't go somewhere, expect the cheapest food and the best service, right? There's always a balance somewhere, right?
Correct.
But I think you're right, because actually if you went somewhere and the food wasn't that good, but the service was great, you wouldn't care so much that if you went somewhere, the food was amazing, like, oh, banging food, but the service was out.
Yeah.
You know, it's how do you find that balance, right?
Correct, yeah. I think it's tough this is not F&B. I think this is just Malaysian service industry in general. I think a lot of Malaysians, we grow up not very confident or not very outspoken, you know? So obviously when we come to service line, we're not used to like being, hey, how are you today, you know?
Understand.
We're still very introverted as Malaysians, I think.
I think it's one thing I noticed definitely when I go back to the UK. People there just talk all the time. Like even if the cashier, right, in like Sainsbury's something, "Hi love, how was your day?" It's like, oh, what? You know, how's my day?
Yeah,
you know?
right.
It's just, I think it's just a culture thing, right?
Yeah.
So not to say one is right or wrong.
No, of
but
course not. It's just
going to be a lot harder if it's not naturally there, right?
Yeah.
To get it out, right?
correct. But I think, despite me saying that, I do see it getting better through the generations, you know? Yeah. Like I feel the younger generations now, they're a bit more confident. Is that the right
Yeah,
word?
confident, I guess, a bit more out,
Yeah,
extroverted.
yeah, extroverted.
right?
You know, I go to cafe and like, there's actually that, hey, how are you? I'm like, oh, okay.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Like, you feel it.
You
Right?
feel it's getting better. Don't get me wrong. Yeah.
I mean, that's the thing, right? It's just an observation. It's not to say anything's right or wrong, or this is another disclaimer.
Yeah, sorry, yeah, I keep saying that,
you know,
sorry, yeah,
right,
yeah,
you know, nothing wrong with
Yeah.
it either way, right? But no, it's good to get that feedback. And I think one thing that I definitely like, and why I'm glad we got to talk today, is I've actually been to Fox Paradox a few times. I like the food.
Thank you.
know?
Thank you.
And,
Yeah.
like, we've chatted before, and I do think it's quite interesting, that sort of journey going from, okay, very sort of, you know, starting out individual, going into that corporate line, which is, like you said, completely different,
Yeah.
right? Now going back into your own venture. For me,
Yeah.
I think there's a lot of lessons there,
Oh yeah, for sure.
and it's been good sharing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thanks for having me.
I mean, we haven't
Yeah.
even spoken about other stuff like gym, carnivore diet.
Carnivore
We said we were
diet,
gonna
yeah.
do, right? No, right? Still
Yeah.
promised, right?
Still
Still
promised,
never done
yeah.
it yet, right? Anyway, thanks so much for coming on.
No worries. Thanks for having me. It's been really great.
It'd be nice to chat more, especially the non F&B stuff. But I think some big
some really big lessons there.
Yep,
And some
okay.
good sharing, to be honest. And I hope the audience find it useful.
Yeah, I hope it brings value, you know. I hope it does. Yeah.
And I would say definitely for anyone, come to a Fox Paradox, try the food, because it is very unique. I'm not just saying it because Neil's here. It's personally one of my favorite cafes because I go back there. And again, I'm not just saying it because you're here.
I'll pay you the 2,000 later.
Invoice.
Invoice, yeah.
Yeah, right?
Yeah.
You got the envelope, right?
Yeah.
But anyway, thanks so much for coming along.
No worries, thank you too.
And thanks everyone for watching. Stay tuned for more episodes of Cari Makan podcast where we'll be talking more about F&B. Thanks so much, Neil.
No worries,
And
thank you.
thanks for watching.
Yep.
Don't forget to follow, like, subscribe,
Right.
and see you around.